Welcome back to Destination Pro Wrestling. Today we are talking about an AEW star, somebody who works behind the scenes on AEW and has actually been part of the AEW Dynamite product more than once. We are talking about it because this guy is no longer welcome back in WWE, and it's actually quite shocking. I'm going to break down the reasons why it's shocking and how WWE is somewhat hypocritical based on this decision. We're going to talk about it right here, right now on Destination Pro Wrestling.
Arrived at your destination.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ango at Tango with Ango on Twitter and Instagram, keeping the upload streak alive. Thank you all for the love and support recently, especially during this quarantine. It's been rather difficult. I understand a lot of people are struggling lately. So hopefully this content has helped you kind of pass time and whatever it may be. I thought today's news was actually very, very interesting because the website that actually posts this article doesn't always have the best track record of, integrity and all that good stuff. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about Ringside News posting an article about how WWE will not work with Diamond Dallas Page from AEW. Now, again, this did come from Ringside News, but what was really interesting was Diamond Dallas Page's response. On Twitter, he simply tweeted, "I am very grateful to WWE, but without Dusty Rhodes, there is no DDP." And I thought this was very interesting because, of course, I saw the tweet and I wasn't sure, so I read the article and, it was very, very interesting. But basically, Ringside News had aggregated some content that came from Alex McCarthy from TalkSport. As you guys know, I've talked about Alex McCarthy and some of the great news and viewpoints that he's made on pro wrestling. So altogether, I would say this is a pretty credible article, pretty interesting article to say the least. And most importantly, there's a couple of reasons why this actually doesn't make sense. And whether or not you view DDP as a star in AEW, he is, because DDP works backstage in some sort of capacity with AEW, although he wasn't signed to an exclusive contract to AEW. Now, at the time of this video, I don't know specifically if DDP has officially signed to DDP or to AEW, I should say. But what was very interesting was kind of how this whole thing broken down, because as you guys know, at some point last year, WWE had a reunion show in which Jim Ross was obviously working with All Elite Wrestling. Vince McMahon and WWE made the offer to Jim Ross to work an episode of Raw, and Tony Khan actually approved this. Tony Khan in AEW was totally cool with the idea of Jim Ross, despite being an on-air talent for AEW. They were cool with the idea of Jim Ross being on WWE, which kind of goes to show you how incredible Tony Khan is as a business person, because whether or not we want to admit it, WWE and AEW are competition, which is why this is all too interesting. So basically what had come out was that WWE did not want to work with DDP due to his ties with AEW and pretty much helping them get off the ground. DDP confirms that this is the situation by obviously tweeting that. But it goes on to say that with WWE specifically, Dusty Rhodes, obviously everybody knows Dusty Rhodes was highly influential in Dallas Page's career. But of course, Dusty Rhodes, his son, is the EVP of AEW. So this is kind of like DDP's way of paying back the Rhodes family, especially in helping out Cody Rhodes, which ultimately, I think if anybody was in this situation, it would make a lot of sense as to why he would be in this predicament. But it also doesn't make sense that WWE here is petty to say that they will not welcome him back. He is banned from WWE. He is not going to go to WWE. And it's really interesting because the article had made mention that the only reason why DDP never even signed an exclusive contract to AEW was for the fact that he still wanted to be involved with WWE, because obviously there is a lot to credit WWE for in his career, which is crazy that WWE would literally make this open invitation a year ago to Jim Ross and now not do the same for DDP in any circumstances. So the idea of DDP being featured in a WWE video game, highly unlikely. The idea of DDP being part of any sort of WrestleMania program or any sort of NXT coaching job, very unlikely. It's not about being on Raw or SmackDown, and I want to make that very clear in this video because I think a lot of times people think that I am advocating for an older legend to be on WWE programming. That's not exactly what I'm advocating for. But what I am advocating for is a guy like DDP, who obviously has a very, very incredible brand in DDP Yoga, pretty much has saved the lives of many wrestlers who are going down the wrong road. It kind of shocks me that WWE would not use him as an asset, especially when you look at the Performance Center and NXT. And don't get me wrong, we are under quarantine. It's not like WWE can be bringing in as many people as you would think. But at some point in the future, I feel like DDP is just good for all around wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, or hell, even if it was Impact. I think the brain knowledge that he has, the amount of skill that he possesses, he pretty much could bring an entire foundation to help the youth of pro wrestling. And this is where I think AEW can do a really good job of developing talent, especially when you have a guy like DDP. Some people didn't like the idea of DDP facing off against the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. A lot of people didn't like that idea of him being featured with MJF on TV because, again, DDP is a WCW legend. Some people were calling AEW WCW 2.0. But what we're really seeing here is DDP using his assets to help a company get off the ground so that way the pro wrestling industry can be a lot more healthier. So it leads me back to the question, if you're WWE, wouldn't you prefer if the wrestling industry was healthy, for one? Two, wouldn't you want this guy to be involved in some capacity? Now, don't get me wrong, WWE has tons of resources and assets that they can go to. He's not the only legend that WWE needs access to. But it's very clear that having DDP on your side is helpful and it's influential in the growth of your product. I think WWE probably could have seen him more as a benefit of working behind the scenes with NXT, especially considering the history there with Dusty Rhodes. However, WWE is done doing business with DDP. And I don't know if this is going to be a long-term thing, but WWE has banned DDP from the product, from the company, and it's got me scratching my head. It's got me scratching my head because right now I think WWE, in all honesty, they are going to do some really good things. Whether or not you want to admit this, whether or not you're just an AEW fan or WWE fan, whatever way you swing, it doesn't matter. To me, I think this goes into one big boom for pro wrestling. After this quarantine, when things start to slowly and gradually get back to normal, crowds will be there for WWE and AEW. And quite honestly, the crowds will be incredibly happy to be there. Things that may have not received a pop before might have a pop because we all face a real life circumstance that a lot of people are starting to realize it's bigger than pro wrestling. Despite us not always enjoying what WWE puts together, you know damn well the fans are going to go crazy at the next few wrestling events that have full crowds in attendance. And that's going to be the same for AEW. So nonetheless, WWE is a very, very weird company because AEW is going to do big things. WWE is going to do big things. And both companies are going to do really, really good things once the lockdown is done. Once this whole pandemic peaks, once things slow down and things finally get back to normal, which hopefully it's all soon. Once all that happens, guys, both of these companies are going to boom. These companies are going to put out some incredible content. The crowds will just put some more infectious energy that I think will be incredible for how we consume pro wrestling. If you guys were watching pro wrestling and you were getting kind of tired, whether it was AEW or WWE, right now I think will be a very, very good time to see how these guys come out swinging. And I think AEW is going to put their best foot forward. I think NXT, Raw, SmackDown will put their best foot forward. And honestly, like I said, this is much bigger than just pro wrestling. What's happening in the world today is impacting so many people. And because it's impacting so many people, I just think it's kind of gotten to the point where DDP is an asset to AEW. And AEW will continue to see that play very well into their show. And I think we don't need DDP matches, obviously. But the guy can still go, by the way. But we don't need those matches. What we need is the brains, the knowledge, the health aspect that DDP brings to the roster, to the young people who are developing, people who haven't worked television before. WWE offering Jim Ross a spot on their show a year ago, and a year later, DDP doesn't get the same feeling. And whether or not you like DDP more than Jim Ross or whatever it may be, they are both, in their own way, important to wrestling history. Bad move by WWE. Sounds a little salty, maybe a little petty. Good move by DDP for allowing himself to do right by WWE, only to be kind of, screwed by WWE in the end. It doesn't matter. I think sometimes the good guys always try to do something good. WWE doesn't care. WWE's in their own la-la land, whatever it may be, who knows. But very interesting news. DDP confirmed this on Twitter. Really interesting stuff, man. I want to know what you guys think. DDP is banned from WWE. This is a little bit more of a bigger concern because it's not about the name value that you think DDP possesses. This is all about the thinking that WWE has going forward, and a thought process like that could potentially hurt them. Don't forget, guys, if you click that subscribe button and ring the bell, you could literally get notified on all of the content. At least you're supposed to. That's what YouTube says, at least. So if you ring the bell and you subscribe, hopefully you guys get notified on all my content. But if you don't, just follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I notify you guys all the time when the newest videos are up. Daily videos. Even after lockdown, guys, I want you guys to know that I am committed to producing content daily on this channel. And I appreciate you guys for all of the positive feedback lately. You are incredible. Thank you guys for watching. This is your boy Ango at Tango with Ango on Twitter and Instagram. And I'll see you guys next time.
You have arrived at your destination.